Welcome to today's Catholic Daily Readings from Christus Dominus Bread of Life. A reading from the first book of Samuel. Now when David returned, after he had struck down the Philistine, the women went out from all the cities of Israel, leading the singing and dancing, rejoicing with timbrels and bells so as to meet King Saul. And the women sang as they played, saying, Saul has struck down 1,000, and David 10,000. Then Saul became exceedingly angry, and this word was displeasing in his eyes. And he said, They have given David 10,000, and to me they gave only 1,000. What is left for him, except the kingdom itself? Therefore, Saul did not regard David with a good eye from that day and thereafter. Now Saul spoke to his son Jonathan and to all his servants so that they would kill David. But Jonathan, the son of Saul, loved David very much. And Jonathan revealed it to David, saying, Saul my father is seeking to kill you. Because of this I ask you, take care for yourself in the morning, and you should conceal yourself and remain in hiding. Then I going out will be standing beside my father in the field where you will be, and I will speak about you to my father, and whatever I see I will report to you. Then Jonathan spoke good things about David to his father Saul, and he said to him, You should not sin, O king, against your servant David, for he has not sinned against you, and his works toward you are very good. And he took his life in his own hand and struck down the Philistine, and the Lord wrought a great salvation for all of Israel. You saw it, and you rejoiced. Why then would you sin against innocent blood by killing David, who is without guilt? And when Saul had heard this, being pleased by the voice of Jonathan, he swore, As the Lord lives, he shall not be killed. And so Jonathan called David, and he revealed to him all of these words. And Jonathan led in David to Saul, and he was before him, just as he had been yesterday and the day before.
Mercy, O God, for the innocent are hunted. All the day they are pressed and pursued. Violence walks freely through the streets of the powerful, and the weak are crushed in silence. They cannot cry, they cannot flee. They have no voice to rise and speak. But you have counted every wandering step and every tear they cannot weep. In God I trust, I shall not fear. Though the world is violent and the night is near, in God I trust, I shall not fear. You are our shield, you are our strength, you are here. You have stored every tear in your vessel. You have written every name in your book. No life is hidden from your seeing. No child is lost from your look. When they fall before their first breath, when they are stolen into death, you remain the God who sees. You remain the God who weeps. In God I trust, I shall not fear. You are the refuge for the broken and small. In God I trust, I shall the defender, the wall, the call. We stand for those who cannot stand. We speak for those without a voice. We carry grief before your throne, and still we choose your choice. Not with hatred, not with rage, but with prayer that shakes the age. We lift the lives the world denies into your saving gaze. You have rescued souls from death. You have kept our feet from falling. You have called us into light and life, even when the world is dark and calling.
In God I trust, I shall not fear.
Not the powers of flesh, not the reign of fear.
In God I trust, I shall not fear.
You are the light, the truth, the shield, the spear.
In God I trust, I shall not fear.
For every child unseen and unknown.
In God I trust, I shall not fear.
You call them yours. You call them home.
We walk before God in the light of the living. We walk before God in the light of the living.
We walk before God in the light of the living.
A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Mark. But Jesus withdrew with his disciples to the sea, and a great crowd followed him from Galilee and Judea, and from Jerusalem, and from Idumea and across the Jordan. And those around Tyre and Sidon, upon hearing what he was doing, came to him in a great multitude. And he told his disciples that a small boat would be useful to him, because of the crowd, lest they press upon him. For he healed so many that as many of them as had wounds would rush toward him in order to touch him. And the unclean spirits, when they saw him, fell prostrate before him. And they cried out, saying, "You are the Son of God." And he strongly admonished them, lest they make him known. Join us for today's reflection. God keeps a bottle for your tears. That image from today's psalm is one of the most striking in all of Scripture. David wrote it while running for his life, hunted by enemies who wanted him dead. He cried out to God in the darkness and received this extraordinary assurance: "You number my wanderings. Put my tears into your bottle. Are they not in your book? Every tear that falls matters to God. Every silent cry reaches his ears. Every grief is recorded and remembered." Today is January 22nd. The Church in the United States observes this as the day of prayer for the legal protection of unborn children. It marks the anniversary of Roe v. Wade, the 1973 Supreme Court decision that legalized abortion across America. Though that ruling was overturned in 2022, the work of building a culture of life continues. Millions of children have been lost. Millions of mothers carry wounds that may never fully heal, and the battle for legal protection continues state by state, heart by heart. The Psalm's refrain gives us our posture for this day. In God I trust, I shall not fear. This is not passive resignation. This is the defiant faith of someone who refuses to be paralyzed by the magnitude of what he faces. David was hunted, outnumbered, and seemingly powerless against forces that wanted to destroy him. Yet he chose trust over terror. He believed that God saw his wanderings, collected his tears, and would ultimately vindicate him. The pro-life movement requires exactly this kind of trust. The forces arrayed against the unborn are powerful, well-funded, and culturally dominant in many places. The legal landscape remains uncertain. The wounds are deep on all sides, and yet we are called not to fear but to trust, not to despair but to persist, not to grow weary but to pray. The readings today speak to this persistence in unexpected ways. In the first reading, David has just slain Goliath and returned in triumph. The women of Israel sing his praises. Saul has slain his thousands and David his tens of thousands. And something ugly awakens in King Saul: jealousy, suspicion. From that day on, Saul kept a jealous eye on David. This jealousy metastasizes into murderous intent. Saul tells his son Jonathan and all his servants to kill David. But Jonathan loves David and intervenes. He speaks to his father, reminding him of everything David has done for him. He put his life on the line when he killed the Philistine, and the Lord brought about a great victory for all Israel through him. You saw it and rejoiced. Why then should you sin against innocent blood by killing David without cause? Without cause, innocent blood. Jonathan speaks for those who cannot speak for themselves. He stands between power and its intended victim. He uses his position and his voice to defend someone marked for death, and remarkably, it works. Saul listens. He takes an oath: as the Lord lives, he shall not be killed. David is brought back into the king's presence, restored to his former place. This is what advocacy looks like. Jonathan did not have the power to overrule his father, the king, but he had a voice and he used it. He spoke truth to power. He reminded Saul of what David had done, of his innocence, of the injustice of shedding blood without cause, and a life was spared. Every crisis pregnancy center counselor who sits with a frightened young woman is doing what Jonathan did. Every sidewalk advocate who offers alternatives outside a clinic is doing what Jonathan did. Every legislator who drafts protections for the unborn, every voter who considers life when casting a ballot, every grandmother who opens her home to a daughter in crisis, every friend who walks alongside a grieving post-abortive mother is speaking for those who cannot speak for themselves. The gospel shows us Jesus surrounded by crowds, healing the sick, casting out demons. People press toward him from every direction, so many that he asks his disciples to have a boat ready lest they crush him. And whenever the unclean spirits saw him, they fell down before him and cried out, "You are the Son of God." There is something deeply significant happening here. The demons recognize Jesus immediately. They know exactly who he is. They fall before him involuntarily, compelled by his presence to acknowledge his authority. Jesus orders them to be silent, but not before they have testified to the truth. Evil knows the Son of God when it sees him. Evil trembles in the presence of holiness. And evil, no matter how entrenched, no matter how powerful it appears, must ultimately bow to the one who is life itself. This gives us hope. The culture of death is not invincible. The principalities and powers that profit from the destruction of the innocent will one day fall before the Son of God, just as surely as those demons fell by the Sea of Galilee. Our task is to remain faithful until that day, trusting that God sees every tear, records every wandering, and will bring justice in his time. The psalm returns again and again to this central affirmation: "In God I trust, I shall not fear. What can flesh do to me? In God, whose word I praise, in God I have put my trust." This is not optimism. David was not pretending that his situation was fine. He acknowledged his enemies, their plots, their relentless pursuit, but he refused to let their power determine his peace. He anchored himself in God's faithfulness and found courage to keep going. Today, as we pray for the legal protection of unborn children, we need this same anchoring. The statistics are staggering. The opposition is fierce. The cultural headwinds are strong, and yet God keeps a bottle for every tear. He numbers every wandering. He sees every child, born and unborn, and knows them by name. Jonathan spoke up for David. Jesus healed those who pressed toward him, and we are called to speak, to act, to pray, to persist for those who have no voice. You have delivered my soul from death, the psalm concludes, and my feet from stumbling, that I may walk before God in the light of the living. The light of the living, what a phrase. Every child in the womb is meant for the light of the living. Every mother in crisis deserves support to choose that light. Every father needs to know his responsibility and his capacity to protect. Every post-abortive heart needs the healing that only Christ can bring. In God we trust, we shall not fear, and we will not stop praying, speaking, and working until every unborn child has the legal protection they deserve as children of God.